Good evening. We'll call the meeting back into order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Kolpak? Here. Pepcorn?
Here.
Preston? Here. Strand?
Here.
Mahoney?
Here. Health. Credible Mind, a free online platform focused on mental health and wellness, is available to the community at Fargo Cass Public Health website. The self-help format contains a variety of useful resources. National HIV Testing Day is June 27th. The Fargo Cass Public Health offers free HIV testing and counseling with test results available in 15 minutes. Library. Under the Big Top, a circus-themed event with a former circus ringmaster, Amin Klein, will be June 29th at the Carlson Library. A little difficult because of construction, so it may want to take some time. The weekly summer storytime sessions are happening as part of the Summer Reading Challenge on Tuesday and Wednesdays through July. Residents are encouraged to volunteer at the Carlson Library learning garden plots on Thursday morning. And the Fargo History Hunt features 12 historic buildings in downtown Fargo, and maps are available at all three library-like locations. Other. Fargo has been named the Fortune 2023 list of the 50 best places to live for families. This annual list recognizes the 50 best places to live in each state based on healthcare, education, resources for seniors. The listing says in part, those who settle into everyday life in Fargo will be pleased to find a diverse job market with opportunities in healthcare, technology, education, and agriculture, and an unemployment rate well below the national average, denoting a strong economy. Fargo's affordable combined with high quality of life makes it an attractive place to settle down. We recently recognized 164 Team Fargo members for the annual Employee Recognition event. These employees have a combined 2,535 years of service for the city of Fargo, including reference librarian Steve Hubbard, who was recognized for 50 years of service. We are very thankful for all the hard work that Team Fargo puts in every day for our residents, businesses, and visitors. Here's a video of some of the highlights from the event.
I started working at the Fargo Public Library when I was in high school. The library was a natural place. I read a lot. I felt comfortable at the library. It was a nice place. They basically needed an attendant for the basement reading room. And then I was a shelver. I kept track of how many books I shelved for a 1 year and a half period. I actually have the receipts. It was over 100,000 books in about 18 months. I'm getting physical action, moving around, getting up and down, so you know, not static in a chair. And you get to know the collection. All in all, just a really, really good place to work.
It was a nice event. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the June 12th, 2023 regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 1 through 31?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Resident comments at this time, and in person, there's a Noah Spearling. And Noah, you come to this side over here.
Hello. All right. I hope you're all doing all right today. A few comments about street vendors and some of the struggles that I've been having with dealing with some of the violations of code and other things of that nature downtown. Being a street food vendor, we've had to deal with quite a few different things. I would have to say that the number one thing that we have to deal with is being harassed by other vendors and also other vendors not complying with any of the code. For example, Top Dog and his associates all have food carts that are too tall by about 1.5 feet. Code is 4'6". They're all about 6 foot tall. They also have tables and chairs and loudspeakers, coolers, you name it, basically. There's just basically I don't know how to put this, a large amount of things being left around on the street. And I've also gotten harassed from him, he was set up in a spot he wasn't permitted, and when confronted about this, dialed 911, and I was the one found in the wrong there, which he was blocking the entrance to our business. So some of these things just I think kind of need to be addressed for a safer downtown and a more conducive to business, safer, just everything around. It's not just him as a vendor. There's been multiples. Just last weekend there was a rogue vendor that set up without permit. Another thing that's been a trouble is Top Dog has a total of 9 spots for his 3 carts, and he does not use 6 of them. They're simply used to force out other competition and what have you. And I've been trying to get some attention on this for at least 5-6 years now. And honestly, we don't really feel safe downtown anymore. I guess that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. West Philomay.
West Philomay, he, him, his pronouns. I'd like to start by saying long live George Floyd and Anue Magic. As someone who has advocated for the creation of our DEI department, you all know how invested I am in its success and failure. You also know how critical I've been of the lack of direction and the results put on display so far. During the last city commission meeting, our planning department provided an update on the community growth plan. The entire time I wondered if and how our DEI department was leveraged to ensure that equity and inclusion was a part of the plan. When our chief presented a plan for a specialized task force to combat street racing, again, I wondered if our DEI department was leveraged to ensure that the BIPOC community would not be unfairly targeted or over-policed. I was able to speak with Dr. Terry after the last meeting regarding the annual report that Fargo PD had failed to produce. Within a day, he got back to me and let me know a report would be provided in July. I plan once again to speak with him to see if he is a part of the conversation on the growth plan and specialized task force, and if he is not, I will set the expectation that he find a way to be included. After all, he does not only answer to the city, he answers to the people who tax dollars pay his salary. As the DEI position becomes more and more polarized, it is necessary that we show the positive effects the department is having on our city or watch as it falls victim to the culture wars currently plaguing our country. It is not just on Dr. Terry to present how effective he has been. It is on our city to present how its almost $200,000 in taxpayer dollars are effectively being utilized within this department. Thank you.
Next, we go to item 33, public hearing is going to be continued till 8/21/23. It's an application for a Class GH alcoholic beverage license for 5-Star African Cuisine. So that will be continued. Do I have a motion?
I move to continue.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Public hearing 34, application for a Class A Club alcoholic beverage license for Fargo Air Museum doing business as the Fargo Air Museum to located at 1609 19th Avenue North. Steve Sprague to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We received an application from the Fargo Air Museum for a club license. To have a club license, the entity needs to be in existence for 20 years and have in excess of 200 members. This application did go through our regular background check and to the Liquor Control Board, and it does come to you with a recommendation of approval.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to the Club A license? Anyone present wishing to speak? If not, I close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, and then I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Preston.
Is A Club one of the categories that's limited?
No, it is not, because the limiting factor is the membership and years of existence.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. I'm just curious, Steve, if they fall under 200, do we care?
Well, when I saw their membership, I don't think that they're going to fall under 200. They were well in excess of 400 members. But certainly, if we saw that situation, we would want to address that.
Any other? Commissioner Pepcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, just a couple of quick things. So basically, in the past, they have lots of events, fundraisers mostly, and in the past, they would have to contract with someone else to serve the alcohol. And so now this, basically, they will have a manager and do it. However, they will still have to follow all the rules as far as serving. They will have to have staff that has server training and all that kind of stuff. So but it's basically taking in-house what they used to have someone else do outside. Is that correct, Steve?
Absolutely correct.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Application Class W alcoholic beverage license for Fargo Brewing Company doing business as Fargo Brewing Company to be located at 610 University Drive North. Steve Sprague to explain W and also the license.
Yes, so the Fargo Brewing Company obviously has been in existence and operating for quite some time. And they've been operating with a Class C, which is a beer only liquor license. The Class W allows them to serve wine on premise. And so it's gone through the background check with the Liquor Control Board, and it does come to you with a recommendation of approval.
So anyone present who wishes to speak to this license? Anyone present who wishes to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Make the motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on this license? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 36 is going to be continued to 7/10/23. It's hearing on a dangerous building located at 421 15th Avenue North. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Strand?
Yes.
Colpack?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 37, public hearing. Hearing to consider renewal plan and developer agreement with HN 8th Street LLC for Tax Increment Financing District 2023-03 at 52 8th Street South. Jim Gilmore to explain.
Yes, good evening. This is a redevelopment of a site at 502 8th Street South. The developers are Noah Harvey, Dave Noah, and Andy Noah. They've been in discussions with the city for, I think, probably a little over a year on this particular property. It's been vacant. It's in relatively poor condition. I know they've had some meetings with the planning department. They've done some pre-development meetings last year with the planning department, as well as they met with the neighborhood association prior to submitting this application. This would be a real small TIF district compared to many of the others that you've seen. Again, the present site is a 6-unit apartment building that has been vacant. The proposal is to develop 5 kind of more townhome style apartments. In the long term, these can be set up so that they could be sold and became owner occupied if there was a change in the market and they felt that was appropriate. Again, they just submitted the application in April after working on this with myself and other departments for a while. In May, the Economic Development Incentive Committee reviewed the application. This was sent to our financial advisor, PFM, and they concluded that without public assistance, this project would not be feasible. And even with this TIF, the rate of return is 9%, which is below that 10 to 15% range that most other developers are looking for. The renewal plan went to the Planning Commission in June. They felt that the plan was consistent with the overall city plans. The amount of the tax increment financing would be $286,500. In addition, they would be reimbursed about $14,000 for the city fee. It would likely run 15 years, the full 15-year term, which would be the maximum. What I'd like to do now is have a representative of the development group, Dave Noah, I believe you're going to speak on this, talk about the project, and he's available for any questions, and then I can move on to the recommended motion.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to thank Jim and Nicole and Mark and pretty much everybody on that side of the room for their help. We've met with all of them, and they've been great to deal with. The building that is there right now is in terrible, terrible shape, and it's supposed to be vacant, but occasionally there's people there that we've kicked out and had to chase out of there. It's a real eyesore for the neighborhood. We've had neighborhood meetings, and everything was very positive that came out of those meetings. And we just feel that the TIF is really going to help us because it's a tight project in the first place because of the contour of the land. We're keeping all the trees. We're trying to maintain a presence of 1 unit fronting 8th Street and then 4 units on 5th Avenue. So it kind of gives an appearance of 1 unit on 8th Street. So it kind of fits the neighborhood a little bit better. I can answer any questions.
Any questions, the commission? Mr. Strand?
Thank you. I'm just curious, how long has it been vacant? And is that how intentional is that decision or not?
Well, when we bought the building, there was the rents were so low that when we went through there, just did a walk through, there was snow coming in on the top floor, and the people didn't want to say anything to the landlord because they didn't want the rents to go up. So it's in tough shape, and so we immediately had people, leave the building just because it wasn't safe and it wasn't. We would have had to raise the rents because the landlord paid the heat, and it was just kind of a gong show. So it was intentional to have everybody out of there. And we worked with the city on a few different projects. We at one time thought about doing condos. But again, because of the contour of the land and the amount of site work and concrete and other things that would have to take place to make that work, it just wasn't feasible. So these 5 units are probably the best thing that can happen there. We all love downtown and enjoy downtown, but there's something to be said about being at arm's length from downtown, being near Island Park, and being able to walk downtown. And so we just think this is a great project for the area.
And bear with me, how long ago did you buy it?
5 years ago.
Okay.
Mr. Kolpak?
I just have one comment. The other point I thought that was important as part of the background is that without the financing, the rental rates would also have to increase almost 8% on
Yeah.
top of the $2,800, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the public wish to speak to this project? Anybody wants to speak to the TIF? Closed public hearing, do I have a motion?
So
Mayor, I
moved.
just want to clarify the motion, if I could, would be to, so we get it right in the minutes, to adopt the resolution that would adopt the renewal plan, and then also the form of the development agreement pending final legal review. Eric and their attorney are still working on some of the language. It would not change any of the business terms, but there could be some editing that needs to be done, so.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Can I add one more thing?
Commissioner Pipcorn.
Jim, so this isn't in the Renaissance zone? Is it like close by, or that, to me, that would have also, we would have maybe not to have to do this as much if we would have done that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think the southern boundary of the Renaissance zone is across the street, so,
So it was close,
yeah.
and you can't really move it, the boundaries, or that wasn't part of the,
You know, they needed more than 5 years worth of tax assistance to make it work, and so
Okay.
this TIF can go 15, so that it wasn't enough to get it done, or we may have considered that.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Preston.
2 questions. It seems like I've read someplace, and I'm not finding it right now, that this is a TIF note.
Correct. How this would work is they would pay the property taxes, and then it would be reimbursed to them. So if the new, I forget how much they're paying right now, say $2,000, and then it goes up to 30,
Okay.
they would get the 28 back each year for 15 years at
Okay.
the most, or until it was paid off.
Okay,
So-
I get that confused with giving cash out up front. What's that called? It's called something else?
You know, there's more of a traditional TIF where the city will take the risk and, you know, pay for the cost. Maybe we'd pay for the demolition and hope to get
exactly.
paid back. We've usually only done that on,
Okay.
or things like parking ramps. We tend to be more risk adverse. This is more of a pay-as-you-go TIF. That's what the
So that's
attorneys
not what
refer
this
to it.
is. Okay, that was my question. The second question I have is, I see a completion date of December 2025. That's 2.5 years out, right?
Yeah, I think they plan to be done by 2024. We put that in just in case some, you know, problem came up.
So is that usual in these agreements, that we go out that
It's-
far?
Yeah, typically, yes. Depends on what the developer asks for. Sometimes it's easier to give them some extra time to avoid having to do amendments.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. A couple of things. Jim, what's the demo cost of this building?
Dave, if you have that, if not, I'll.
94,000.
It's probably in the $50,000, $60,000 range. It's a big building.
Yeah, about
I-
94,000. The TIF money, about 94,000 would be for the demo, 100,000 right down on the land, and then just site improvements, sidewalks, some utility work is in the $88,000 range.
So help me understand, besides the building, which some would say is blighted, what else is blighted that needs a TIF?
It's simply the building.
Just the building? But it's 90,000 to get rid of, to demolish it, that's 200,000 more beyond the demo cost for a TIF.
Well, there's the infrastructure
There-
of the, bringing the utilities in. You got to go in on South A Street. There's a special project where you have to be a little bit.
Bear with me, my sense of TIF is it's to address blight.
It addresses blight, but part of addressing blight is to write down the cost of the land to what the land is worth. So, you know, this land's worth about 71,000. They paid 175 for it. So the 104,000 of the assistance we're giving them is taking this building that's worth 100,000 maybe and down to just the value of the land.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just.
Mr. Preston.
So I think this is a good example of, now, I'm glad to see that it's 5 units. We're not losing more than 1 unit. But we're going from a very affordable, low rent kind of environment to something that's much more expensive. as a city, we've really got to start to address how we begin to meet the needs of those that are needing that lower rent. And hopefully the housing study will do that, but, you know, we're losing another 6 here.
I think one of the things this does address is in some of our plans, we talked about trying to create this missing middle housing. So we've got these, big 5-6 story apartment buildings downtown. When we have new single family homes on the edge, we don't have very little in this kind of middle density or lower density, but not single family. And so this kind of fills one of that goals, although I agree it doesn't address the affordability that we should look at after the housing study.
So
Commissioner Strand?
what is the price point rental rate that we're expecting?
2,800,
How many bedroom on that, Dave?
3.
2,800 a month for 3-bedroom?
About 1,900 square feet, so they're not tiny.
Commissioner Pepcorn?
That was my question.
And that's just a product of what's happening. I mean, look at the rents downtown, look at the rents all over. That's just, sometimes that blows me away, and I see it every day, but that's what's happening.
Well, you're saying it's throughout the community, a 3-bedroom could go for 2,800.
Yeah.
Commissioner Strand?
It is what's happening. I just don't, I'm only speaking for me,
Yep.
Mr. Noah.
Yep.
I just don't know it's our job as a city to partner to do that, to be a partner in that financial approach. I just don't know that's our role and or what we should be doing. That's where I'm at. There's lots of folks buying properties and demolishing and demoing, but they don't always come to us to have a $300,000 investment in that. And if that question weren't there, I wouldn't have any problem at all. At all. It's the city contribution aspect of it for blight that I'm not in favor of.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
No,
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 38, presentation from the developers of 501 Main Avenue on proposed changes in their development plans. Presentation by who, Matt?
I think I'll start this off. Something we had talked a little bit about in the executive session, but what was originally approved or submitted to the city is this redevelopment was submitted towards the end of 2020. There were going to be a 6-story office building. You can kind of see here the going to be about 97,000 square feet. Included in that was 13,000 square feet of parking, and then anywhere from a little over 15,000 square feet per floor. The first several floors were going to be office, and then was going to be 4 floors of housing above that. I know that the developers talked about some changes in this throughout the process, just because of the economy. And this was an image that shows what the development was proposed to look like. Again, a 6-story building, kind of a variety of architectural features. More images of that. Recently, in order to make this project feasible, developers asked that we revise it and allow a much smaller project where it would be just a building on the west side of the lot, parking on here, possibly a second that'd stay at 4 stories with all office. And as you can see from these images, the exterior of the building is much different than before, more of I don't know if it's all brick finish on the exterior in a smaller building. So what I'd like to do is turn it over to the developer, but I wanted to show you the contrast between the first proposal that was outlined in the development agreement and what's being proposed today. I'll turn it over to Matt Torgerson with JLG.
So, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Commissioners, thanks for making some time for me tonight. I appreciate it. My goal tonight is really to make sure that you're all familiar with what we're proposing presently. A little
Matt,
bit.
could you just move over a little bit so the mic picks you up for the
Sure, yeah,
public?
of course, thank you. And make you aware of what we're proposing and the idea that we'd very much like to move this project forward. I would say alongside that, we've had a 6-0 affirmative vote from the Rent Zone Authority from the end of April. We've got some tenants hanging out there and ourselves hanging out there with considerable investment. So we are looking for a conclusion to the dialogue and a way forward or not sooner than later. So that being said, I think projects best come together when people collaborate. I think the city of Fargo has been working with us for over 3 years to try to make this project happen. As Jim mentioned, it's evolved quite a bit. I think there's some common goals that we would all of you talk about these consistently. I think they are the goals of this project as well. And it would be wonderful to convert this, another surface lot, to something useful in our community. We've got 3 committed tenants. Most projects do not have that. We've got 3 tenants that are ready to go tomorrow. We'll occupy this building when it's complete. We'll be leveraging existing infrastructure. We are aligning to the city planning direction and hope to create a new gateway to downtown as a result of this project. We believe that both the excerpt cut in here from the RFO, or the request for offer, and an excerpt cut in from the existing agreement we have between ourselves and the city of Fargo can be interpreted to support this project moving forward. That being said, what I really want to focus on is how this project evolved, what the current project clearly is, and what the opportunity is should you choose to move this forward. So work to date is considerable. And the city, Jim and Brenda and others have all participated in getting much of this done. I would say when the land was first offered out, it was a long ways from being able to move forward, right? It needed a lot of work done on it, and we've done that work. Our development team has led most of those efforts, but the land entitlements are done. The plat's conditionally approved. You all took an action on that over a year ago, so we're ready to go on that. We've spent some time working with Brenda and her team to get the Broadway access established. We've done some work on the crosswalk potential, have some preliminary conclusions there, and have paid for a number of consulting studies to do that. The development team has paid for those. We did a quiet zone study to support the Broadway access. The development team has paid for that. We've negotiated with LARDC, or the Lake Agassiz Regional Development Corp, to get some additional land pasted to this because we believe the project would function better and could be a little bit bigger, candidly, and less parking ultimately facing Main if we were to add some land to it. It's incremental, but does help the site function better. Those agreements have been done, and we've had a commitment from the LARDC leadership and their board to move forward with that. Site survey is complete, the altas are done, and Franny over at the title company has helped us get title and abstract work done. So that's all work that's complete. In addition, we're ready to close on the land. We've let you all know that. We're ready to do that this Friday, if that makes sense. To all of you, we've got a parking agreement in place with Bell Bank. Jim was good enough to get, we'd been talking with you all about leveraging the underutilized structured parking garage at the time that was city owned to support this development. Jim got in the agreement with Bell when you guys sold the ramp to them that they needed to negotiate with us, which in fact they did in good faith, and we've got a 15-year agreement with them for up to 100 stalls in that structured parking garage, which we think is the best solution to park this project. It's a really challenging project. It's narrow with not much parking available on site. So we're happy about that. We've done geotechnical a couple times, looking at both shallow and deep foundations, and phase 1 and 2 environmental site assessments have done. The point to all of that is that we've done a ton of work. There's been a lot of folks in this room that have collaborated to help us do that work, but we're ready to go. As I mentioned prior, 3 long-term tenants. This isn't often the case, I don't think, sometimes with projects that come in front of you. But we've got 3 tenants that are extremely excited about being in this project and committed to being in it. And again, we'd be 100% occupied at the completion of the project. You all are aware there's tens, if not hundreds of thousands of square feet open in downtown right now. This project would not be one of those. We've got our financing identified. We've got our equity identified. We've got our contract identified, or our contractor, excuse me, identified. And we've been anxious all along about how acoustics and vibration might perform in this building, and hired a consultant from Denver to help us with that. That's done and baked into the design as you'll see it here in a moment. Finally, just a little bit of just some dates to remind us of all of the journey we've been on. The RFO, Jim, originally issued in the fall of 20. We submitted on that on November of 20. Were awarded at the end of December of 20. We did a rent zone app on the building that Jim just showed you in May. Have an approval from the state to move that forward. We resubmitted and have unanimous approval from the 26th of April on the project that I'll show you here in a minute. We've got a sales agreement with the city that we signed the end of the calendar year. And again, a parking agreement in place with Bell that we executed in May of last year. All of this has been the evolution of this in many ways, and Dave Noah mentioned this, and I think you're all aware of this. We're in unprecedented water in terms of how far the interest rate has moved and how far construction cost has moved. We've tried to be responsive to changes in both the marketplace and our tenancy. Some of our tenants walked away mid-flight here. We've tried to be adaptive and responsive and still hold the project together and keep it moving. So we've had many iterations in this. Feel as if we've kept the city of Fargo up to speed on what those iterations have been and have been supported in moving the project forward. Give you a sense of the investment from the development team to date. F.I. Salter, who's represented by Sandy Huff, and I should have mentioned that at the beginning. The LLC that's looking to do this is a partnership between a couple members of the JLG Architects team and F.I. Salter in Duluth, Minnesota. Between us, we've split all the costs. We're into it for just a bit north of 90 and just hard costs for external consultants. We spent over $270,000 just on internal dollars on 4 different designs of this, and have got over 200 in additional time. So that's some sense of the investment that we have to date in the project. Mayor, I don't know, do you want me to stop and take questions or just get through this? I just ask you that question.
Yeah, finish your,
Okay,
it's fine.
thank you. So we think what we've got in front of you is financially viable, it's fiscally responsible development. It's what we can do, given who we are, with what we've got available to us as resources. I would say to you that JLG Architects has decided to invest in this project. Jim is familiar with the but-for forecast. In fact, he talked about Baker Tilly's analysis maybe of Dave's project, and you guys do this often with many. This project will not yield a double-digit return. In an effort to salvage it, we've got a board action from JLG Architects that they'll underwrite this project, but they won't get a market return. We'll be looking at a single-digit return. New construction typically looks at a yield in the minimum low double digits. I think, Jim, you mentioned 10 to 15%. I think that's what we would think as well, maybe more like 12 to 15, but we're not able to move this forward unless we fund it ourselves, and we won't be making the kind of money that other projects make. Just a brief overview of the 3 tenants. I'm not going to mention them by name for reasons that are probably obvious to all of you, I hope. But one of the tenants has about $2.1 billion in deposits, has 350 people in 3 states and 18 locations, 48 people in Fargo and growing, will not express a parking demand in the Bell-owned ramp period for this tenant. So that tenant, which you might guess is a bank, will not express any parking demand in the Bell-owned ramp. We've got a signed letter of intent from that tenant. Second tenant is approaching 800 people in 6 states and 12 offices with about $1.1 billion in gross revenue. 50 people and growing in Fargo. Came to Fargo not so long ago, extremely excited by the market, have really flourished, are involved with some high profile projects and have a national presence. Their leadership all the way to their president and CEO is on board with this project and looking forward to it happening. They will also be the builder of this project. The third tenant is about 200 people and rapidly growing in 3 states with 9 offices, about $50 million in gross revenue this year. 40 people in Fargo. We're in a couple locations in Fargo at present just due to our growth. Have a strong connection to NDSU. many high-profile regional projects and an emerging national presence, and have an LOI in place with them. It's, I think, worth noting that I have double-checked with all three of these tenants in the last 48 hours about are they still interested and committed. They're all still interested and committed and very excited about moving it forward, should that be possible. So what are the financial impacts? We offered just north of $500,000 for the land. The tax basis goes from 0, this is city-owned land at present, I think you guys know this, to 180, give or take, year 1 to 200 by the time the rent zone expires. However, one of the tenants is not interested in participating in the rent zone. We estimate their tax contribution to be roughly $50,000 annual, so $250,000 over the period that the rent zone is in play. So 250 coming into city coffers that normally wouldn't. And the rent zone is the only benefit on this project. 5 years of rent zone is all this project has. There's also an opportunity that you've all heard me promote and I'm very personally committed to, which is to try to make a public park with a significant piece of public art happen in the adjacent verge. I want to be really clear, that's a separate project. It's one I'm personally very committed to. And I'm bold enough to say that I think most developers would not make that kind of commitment to try to achieve that and gift it to the city. The project Jim has sort of shared already. This is it as we currently contemplate it. I know there's some sensitivity to the visibility of the parking. I'll address that in a minute. And the total footage here, just short of 30,000 in phase 1. I believe, and I said this at the Rent Zone Authority hearing, with all the investment on the south end of Broadway, which is remarkable recently, like that whole playing field's about to change down there. Like, we're not going to know that place back. It's going to be amazing with what Bell's invested, what Kilbourne's doing to the northwest, what Epic's doing to the east. The south end of Broadway is about to go a transformation that's going to be remarkable. I say all that as a backdrop to I believe that the second phase of this project will be extremely attractive to many as this gets done. So if it were 4 stories, just to do the math for you, we could get to just nearly 55,000. If the second phase was 6 floors, we'd be approaching 67 or so. This is the sexiest slide in this whole deck. I know Jim would want to see it, so we need to make sure we put it in here. Some idea of the building, I'm hearing and have heard anecdotally, maybe some feedback on the design direction. We're wide open to feedback on that. If this isn't a building that you find attractive, we'd love to hear that from you and work with you to take it to the place that makes it more attractive. I'll say that we got to this place thinking that one of the requirements back to the RFO was that this building fit its context well. Most importantly, as highlighted in the RFO, was the adjacent building that's the LARDC, or the Lake Agassiz Regional Development Corp., which is a brick building, been around forever, has punched openings, and is pretty simple and clean in its detailing. This building is attempting to be the same way. But if it's desired that this has more variety of it in its palette or design changes, we're wide open to that and would welcome them. This is an idea of how we might be able to repurpose the fence that's currently on the far west end of this property in the same vocabulary as everything that's up and down Broadway when that improvement happened some years ago. We'd suggest we could repurpose that and screen the parking that would be in place until phase 2 happened. And some idea of what the project might look like from the corner. It's maybe a rabbit hole, but I have spent considerable time with an artist, with a real piece of art. This isn't clip art or made up stuff. This is real stuff, working with an artist that's in New York, a fabricator in LA, and a gallery in Berlin. So we're excited about that opportunity as well. Again, reminding of us of the goals. I think we all share these. We're all members of this community. We're trying to do good stuff to move our community forward. Those goals are all achieved by this project. Reminding you again of the financial impacts that this project may have, should it be able to move forward. And maybe most importantly to me and to us anyway, is we've got 3 tenants and ourselves have done all the work you've heard me talk about tonight. We've appreciated the collaboration of everyone in the room. We're ready to move this project forward immediately. Let's go and get it done.
Thank you, Matt. Any commissioners have any questions? comments?
I have a
Commissioner
question.
Preston?
If you could go back, Matt, to
Sure.
your goals, I'd like for you to shed a little more light about develop a surface lot to contribute to tax base. Surface lot not contributing much, in my mind.
No, it's not contributing anything, so
Yeah.
maybe I didn't word that very well, Deputy Mayor, but what I'm really saying is we're taking a zero tax base, kind of eyesore candidly, that's been a surface lot for as long as I can remember. In fact, I can't remember how far we went back, but I think from easily in the 60s, we're converting a surface lot to a development that'll contribute to the tax base.
Gotcha.
Probably a bad word choice or bad phrase, Deputy Mayor, sorry about that.
I had in mind the other half of that lot.
Yeah, I
Commissioner
hear you.
Pipcorn?
So, Mr. Chair, my main concerns are, if you look at the picture of what they're proposing now versus what we approved when the project was originally approved, it's not even close. And my concern is we had other bidders when we approved this, and we need to be consistent and be fair to them. And so that's my main concern, because and I know what's happened. We had COVID where we have increased costs in construction, increased costs in borrowing, but at the end of the day, we approved something, and that's not what's happening now. That's my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So the commission met before this in executive session to discuss the issues that were brought out here. Matt had an opportunity to give his pitch. I think the commission has a suggested motion. I think Commissioner Pipcorn, you have it.
I'm willing to make it if we're ready for a motion.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Kolpak?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. This is I'm a year into this as the newest commissioner. I'm certainly coming in on the third year of 3 years of negotiation. And I also went back and revisited the Renaissance vote and video and that discussion as well, and have read the background information on all of this. I can understand and appreciate the perception that at every step of the way there was a collaboration with internal staff and other departments in good faith by this developer, and I appreciate the fact that it is a different developer, and so I know where we're going on the motion, but I can certainly understand the concern from the developer's perspective. I also appreciate the fact, at a minimum, that there are lessons learned from this approach, and I hope that we do some debriefing on exactly what happened.
Commissioner Pipcorn?
I'll make the motion that the City Commission finds that the current proposed development plan as presented is not consistent with the developer's proposal approved in December 2020, and that does not meet the minimum improvements set forth by the city's agreement with the developer. Due to the reduced square footage, the reduced number of housing units, and the substantially smaller footprint of the development, and the exterior of the building is substantially different. B, that the developer's new proposal for the reduced project is hereby rejected, and C, that the developer, having stated that it does not intend to construct the project as described in the agreement, therefore the city considers the agreement to have been repudiated by the developer.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Preston?
If I can just explain, my biggest concern, and I've had this conversation with you before when you were at the Renaissance Zone Authority, is that we are really trying to get away from surface lots downtown. And that's why I was so excited about your initial proposal. This is adding probably less than half of the tax base, the tax value of the original proposal. So that's why I have a big concern here.
Any other comments?
Can I add one more, Mr. Chair?
Pipcorn?
The other thing is, what I anticipate is, this does not exclude the developer from coming back. I believe what will happen is this property will go back and we'll evaluate a lot of the things that we need to do, but also then it would come back and they would have an opportunity to try to do something again. So I do think that's from my perspective, we have to be fair to the other bidders. When we approved this, we approved that project, and that isn't happening. And so that's my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Colpack?
No.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 39, informational overview of the 2024 preliminary election results. Commissioner Kolpak.
Yes, thank you. I have one slide here, and I just thought it was an opportunity. This issue came up after the last election. We asked for a report from Cass County. That was delayed, but this was a decision by at the last, and I know this is a Cass County Commission decision, but I just thought it was good information for the public. And I just wanted to call your attention to a couple of the approved changes that are coming for the primary election next June. So they've adjusted early voting hours into the evening and the weekend, including adding the Saturday before the June 14th election. Excuse me, that's not June 14th. It's wrong, June 11th. And they have purchased 6 ballot on-demand printers to replenish polling location ballots in case they run out during the event. Also, they're reminding all Cass County residents you can vote at any polling location within the county. They're expanding the number of available vote centers. There will be 6 locations available for early voting and 21 now on Election Day. And then you can hear the Fargo Comms Government Affairs team will be helping to promote pre-election, both primary and general, next summer and next fall. So I just wanted to share that with the public. Thank you.
Thank you. It's nice to have an update. Commissioner Strand.
I wouldn't mind asking a question. Do you know, Commissioner Kolpak, did the question of perceived discrimination at the polls regarding proof of citizenship for some people versus others, did that get addressed?
This was just, I didn't watch the actual commission meeting. This is information post what came out of the minutes, so I don't know that discussion, Commissioner Strand.
I'll just remind us all, that was really an issue for some folks, and we can't let that disappear, however it's addressed.
Ahmed Shields in the audience. Ahmed, that was something the HRC had talked about. Do you know if that was addressed? Can you come to the mic?
Good evening. Yes, that was addressed multiple times and had asked Cass County elections to actually come and present to the HRC, but has not happened.
And we're satisfied?
No.
Okay.
Thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Maybe HRC can pursue that, John.
We
Yeah.
need to. Thank you.
Item 40, request from Kilbourne for cost share assistance in buried the overhead power line in Graver Alley. Kevin Gordon to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Kevin Gordon, Department of Engineering. I want to just give you a real quick update on Robert Street Alley along with the request from Kilbourne on the Graver Alley, just to kind of try to tie things together. We talk about the Robert Street summary cost and then the current status as things are going to start getting busy in the Robert Street Alley here in about a month. And then we'll get to the last item would be the Graver Alley request. So history, this project's been around longer than I've been employed by the city. So this is over 6-7 years old at this point. So the alley has been reconstructed both from 2nd to 4th and from 1st to 2nd. The reconstruction of the concrete paving in the alley allowed conduits to be installed underground so that the power and all the telcos, so when I say telco, think internet, like a Midco, a Sparklight, a CenturyLink, those private providers that are bringing internet into the businesses and residents along this alley. The reconstruction part was 100% assessed as per policy, and then the city paid for the conduit installation as part of this project as we were doing this. And then April of 19, the City Commission approved a cost share proposal with Kilbourne with a not to exceed amount of about $911,000. And then in July of the same year, the actual agreement came forward and it was approved by the city and by Kilbourne Group. So that kind of got us to this pilot project. I think was the term that was used back then, was a pilot project. Xcel Energy was going to provide the resources to install underground primary power and remove the overhead power in the alley. So primary power is the main feed. That's from the supply or the production and supplies, and it brings it to like the transformers that are on the ground. And I'm going to talk about secondary power. The secondary power takes it from the transformer into the businesses or the properties that are adjacent. So there's kind of that primary first, and then they'll step it down and then bring it into the businesses. And then that was done with the contract. But what we did then was we got estimated costs from all the providers who were on the pole, and there was basically 4 of them that were on the pole: Sparklight, Midco, CenturyLink, and Excel, obviously. Kilbourne and the city split the cost of the secondary power and the cost incurred by the telcos to underground their infrastructure. And basically it was on property ownership. Kilbourne owned this percentage of the services, others owned the remaining. So Kilbourne paid for their properties, the city paid for the rest of the properties in that agreement. And that was the agreement that was approved back in 2019. So I talked a little bit about secondary power, but it was required by code. So anytime you change the power source, you have to bring everything up to code in the building. So that was where the secondary power cost came in. So from 2nd to 4th Avenue, the city led that part. So we started in 2019. The last piece of equipment arrived a week ago. So we have been doing this for a very long time, and the last component came in last week. The contract with Magnum Electric right now is right around $515,000. We had a couple change orders. It was originally just under 500, but we've added a little bit of item, a little bit of cost to it. Kilbourne upgraded their properties. So think Roco, Dillard, Lofts. They upgraded their secondary power when they built their buildings. So they took care of all of those. And then the Loretta building was included in the city contract, but by agreement, that part would be paid for by either Kilbourne or other parties. That won't be a city cost. So that reimbursement is coming. From 1st to 2nd, Kilbourne owned basically all of the property along there except for one parcel. So they completed the secondary power upgrade. The cost was about $234,000. The one property that the city paid for was about $24,000. So that kind of explains the secondary power and where we're at with all of that dollars. CenturyLink, they had a lot of stuff on the poles. They have to get new services into all the buildings. We have entered into an agreement about the same time frame, 2019-ish, for just about $336,000 to get their stuff removed off the poles and into the underground. A lot of that has to do with new components and a lot of stuff. There's a lot of moving parts to that. Midco and Sparklight are working on relocation right now. They're thinking 170 to 200 is where Midco and Sparklight are going to be combined, not each. So that's a combined number there for the two that are also on the poles. So looking at the agreement, this is kind of the allocation by agreement. So when this came out, the city was 550 power. You can kind of see the numbers there. Talking about $1.7 million to the telcos and the power. Where are we at? This is the actual numbers we have so far. Again, we're not 100% complete, but we're nearing completion. So you can see a lot of the things are under. The city telco side's a little bit up. And then all of the dollars as they came forward. So the electrical side was a little bit cheaper. The telco side's been a little more expensive as the costs have gone up. Here's a total cost that we've spent in the alley, and that includes brand new alley, all the conduits, secondary power, CenturyLink, Midco. It does not include the primary work by Excel. So Excel's costs are not included in this number. This is the amount of money that's been spent in the alley in the last 8 years or so. So what's the current status? Well, we're basically 95% complete. We're probably closer now. That one component needs to be installed and the overhead power will be done. CenturyLink, they're really getting close to completion. They're probably that 95% range. Midco the same way. Sparklight had a little slower start, but they're making a lot of progress here. This summer they made a lot of progress, and we're hoping to get them to the finish line by August 1st. But Sparklight is waiting for the new power poles to be installed along 4th Avenue North by the chapel and over by Ivers. There's 2 poles that they need to put in place to get that done. So that's the next step. And our target date to begin removal is August 1st, which means complete closure of the alley. No walking, no driving, no deliveries, nothing. When Excel is up there taking all this stuff down, they don't want to have anybody in there. So that's the target date for beginning pole removal is August 1st. So that's Roberts Alley. So I'll kind of just pause for a moment. I forgot to mention, in the south end of the alley on First, we're going to leave 2 poles up. There's no power on them, but one's a city feed point for our lighting system. The second pole is an overhead crossing of First Avenue North for Sparklight. If we were to take that pole out for Sparklight, we'd have to close First Avenue North for about 3 to 4 weeks to underground all that stuff across First Avenue. We have a project that we're proposing in the future, so it seems like that's a better time to bring them across First Avenue North. So that is kind of the summary of Roberts Alley. As we step into the Graver Alley, for the folks that may not be familiar, the Graver Alley is on the other side of Kessler, so just west of Roberts Alley between First and Second Avenue North. We sat down with Kilbourne multiple times. They kind of received a, oh, let me step up. Let me just start with that. Kessler is built between the two alleys. Graver Alley is not as wide as the Roberts Alley. Kilbourne thought that they had made enough allowances for the power in their building design. Excel said, no, it's not quite what we need for safety, so they required that the power be buried in the Graver Alley as well. Kilbourne did that, they paid for it, and now they've come, that's part of the request today is to split that. But as we met with Kilbourne Group, and we kind of had, there's 4 options in your packet. We looked at a lot of options like cost this, or how do we split this, and things like that. We really got to the point where we wanted the Graver Alley to be separate from the Robert Street Alley from a bookkeeping standpoint for Kilbourne. So what they asked us is to follow the framework of the Robert Street Alley agreement and ask for half the reimbursement. They own half the properties on the one side of the alley. If there's other owners that are on the west half of that alley. So following that framework of the Robert Street Alley, the Graver Alley could be split 50-50. The proposal was reviewed and approved by the Fargo Finance Committee. And I mentioned some of the options. This is kind of the one we zeroed in on. So the suggested motion, if you like, is the approve a cost share for about $105,000.
Kevin, that was a discussion by engineering recommendation, right?
Yeah, yep, staff, this is an engineering staff recommendation. We met with Kilbourne and just moving dollars and making sure we're paying all the bills on all of this power removal, this pilot project.
And then are we done after that? This is it? This is the final bill?
To the best of my knowledge, nobody has any other requests coming forward, so I'm
Okay.
hopeful that there isn't a surprise waiting for me when I get to the office tomorrow.
Do I have a motion?
That's a move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion, Commissioner Strand?
Thank you. Kevin, I'm just curious, in the last 8 years or so, a lot is constantly changing, and one of them is safety and public safety. We had an incident in this alley just over the weekend. You know, so are we looking at cameras and lighting and safety and that's as long as this is when it's on, isn't this the time to do some of those things, or is any of that on our radar?
I don't know if I can answer for the police. I don't know if the captain knows. I did have a conversation with one of our facility folks. Maybe Becky knows more too, but they're looking to do something. I just don't know what the time frame is.
Evening, Commissioners. Yes, we are looking at that right now. We're looking at some options, working with facilities on not only cameras, but the software platform that the city uses to monitor those cameras. So we're hoping to get some expansion later on this year. But we're still working on options. So I don't know if it's going to be, I doubt we're going to be ready to do it at the time of this project, but it is something that we're looking at, and we're currently working with some vendors to look at power options and locations. So it is a project they're working on.
I would say throw fuel on that, accelerate it, and don't let any other projects unfold without this element of safety being part, and I'm sure it is already, but part of your vetting of projects.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is definitely a high priority that we want to do something with that project this year.
Mr. Preston?
So, excuse me, is this the only outlay, cash outlay for this project? The rest of the 907,000 has already been paid out, I'm assuming?
Correct.
So this is the only, what's the funding source? Is it from the general fund?
I'm going to guess it's probably the same funding source as what the 9/11 came out of with the engineering money. I don't know if there's any other, I don't know, Mayor, if you found any other money when we talked, or.
I think our new assistant administrator know where the money came from.
I was also the one that started with this project. So good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The complete project has been paid by sales tax, and that's how it was originally approved.
Okay, thank you.
And so, and the whole point of this project was to take a section, bury those power lines. We knew there's more than just bury the power lines, and to come back and be able to give you, if you want to do this again, this is what that total cost looks like.
I think when we originally did it, we weren't sure what final cost would be, so finally we do know, and if in the future commission wants to bury power lines in alleys, we know exactly what it costs, so. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Colpack? Aye. Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. That recommendation is needed by Steve Sprague, and its recommendation to declare the estimated population of the city of Fargo right now is 131,444. Steve, isn't it clear to say that another 6 people moved to town? Can I go a little bit higher?
So, Commissioner and Mayor, the Liquor Control Board is interested in this because at 130,000, it would generate additional liquor licenses that would be available to the city. This number does come directly from the U.S. Census Bureau. Occasionally, they issue interim updates, and I was just requesting that the City Commission consider this population estimate.
He wants to verify it. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second it, and then I have one question.
Commissioner Preston.
Both of these are licenses that would come back to the city?
That's correct. After 2014, all licenses that are newly issued
Okay.
come back to the city. The caveat, of course, would be if it's sold as a going concern. So if somebody gets this license, has let's say a bar, and later decides to retire or something like that, and they sell the business, the license, you can't really have a bar business without a license. So.
Steve just explained it because I found it intriguing when you said, now if these 2 licenses open up and some people apply for it, can you explain to the commissioners who gets them?
So the intention with this would be to have a period where we advertise that the licenses are available. We'll receive applications probably for a 3 or 4 month period. At that time, we will vet all of the applicants that we've received and bring those forward to the Liquor Control Board and ultimately to the City Commission. If we were to only receive one application, then that applicant would be the one that would get the license. If we receive multiple applications, then we would have a drawing for the winner. That's what's called out in the ordinance. That same thing happened at the old City Commission chambers with District 64 having their name drawn.
Commissioner Pipcorn, is Liquor Control considering doing anything different? For instance, would it be better not to have a drawing and kind of look at location or where it's going and what part of town it's going in? Or would it be, what was the reason for the drawing? Just try to be fair?
So in the ordinance, it does say that the City Commission can determine who the winner would be, or the applicant that was considered successful. Certainly, elements like location, whether it be, downtown Fargo, away from downtown Fargo, in the Veterans Boulevard area, that can be a consideration. We have 8 factors of consideration for a location of a liquor license, which include location to churches or schools and different things like that, location to other alcohol serving establishments. And so all of those factors should be considered when the issuance of the liquor license is finally determined.
Could you send those out to the commissioners so they have a copy? Thanks, Steve. Any other discussion? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. Another list I would like to see, as long as we're doing this, is when we were up to our ears in the debate over romantics moving over to Broadway, we had a list of criteria that we were also weighing whether or not somebody should get awarded a new location. Impact on your neighbors financially, whether it brings in crime to the neighborhood, whether it attracts unseemly types of folks. I want us to also consider that list for liquor licenses and be similar and consistent.
Okay. Maybe planning has that.
Maybe planning has that.
Distribute that.
You can read it in the newspaper if you need to.
Yeah. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Colpack? Aye. Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. 42, recommendation to receive and file the following ordinances. One is relating to commercial pedal car vehicles, and 2 is relating to regulations governing operators. I think Nancy Morris can explain these.
I will defer to Steve. He and Kevin put together a PowerPoint for that, and then I'm happy to answer any questions in the development of the ordinance.
So as Nancy said, we had a terrific group, Kevin Gorder from engineering, the police department, Chris helped us with this ordinance, and just to go back through a little bit of a timeline, if you'll recall, in February, we had a presentation to the liquor board of a concept of a pedal vehicle that would be able to tour Fargo, see historic places, different things like that. They would be located, their concept was that they would be located out of Fargo Brewing. And then that same presentation was, or a shortened presentation was given to City Commission, and the commission directed the city attorney to prepare the ordinances. So we met with the applicant. There was another applicant also, or another interested party, and we met with them a couple of times in April and May. The draft ordinance was circulated to the interested parties in June, and now we have it here for receive and file. So city staff received a lot of interest from a couple of different entities. One that had approached the city a number of years ago. One of the things that made this available or made the change was a change to state law that allows for the consumption of alcohol on a pedal vehicle like this. So it'd be similar to a party bus or something like that. Staff met with the different entities. We got their different business plans and tried to merge all of that information. Nancy, the city attorney, reviewed state law and Fargo codes looking for conflicts. And then also she did a search of other ordinances across the nation to see, to try to have an ordinance for the city that would be very strong. Some of the highlights of the requirements are that the business would have to carry $2 million worth of insurance and obtain the city license. There would be an annual inspection of the pedal car, and we've contacted a local bike shop to do that inspection. We would also require that the operator be server trained and have a valid driver's license. So some of the safety features, that the seat belts would be required, that there be headlights and taillights, visible lighting, horn or bell, mirrors and brakes. Open container concerns. So in the ordinance, we're allowing each person of age to bring 2 alcoholic beverages, not to exceed, it says 6 ounces, it's supposed to be 16 ounces, 2 16-ounce beverages. And then the ordinance would exempt pedal cars from the open container regulations within the city. So some of the other operating restrictions, there would be no jumping on or jumping off. So as it's cruising down, let's say down Broadway, we're not taking patrons on and off from the different bars. They would be required to follow all of the traffic laws, and there would be no amplified sound allowed on the vehicle. Engineering had some concerns about the rate of speed that the vehicle would travel, and the mix of the slower moving vehicle with higher rate of speed. And so the concern led to trying to keep the vehicle on less traveled roadways. And so we would have approval of designated routes. Our proposal is to have 4 routes pre-approved, so that they can go on those routes as they need to. And would always consider the private utility work. There may be sometimes when roads are under construction and we have to modify those routes. And so the suggested motion essentially is to receive and file this ordinance. There are two ordinances that are affected. 2538 talks about the vehicle itself, and then 0803 is relating to the open container law. Is that right, Nancy? The open container, okay.
That's correct.
Questions of Steve?
I so
Commissioner
move.
Strand?
I move the recommended motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Go ahead.
When do we expect to see the bicycles on the road?
We do have one of the proposals, proposed business operators here today. They haven't ordered their vehicle yet because they wanted to make sure the ordinance would be in place. So at best, it would be sometime this fall.
Okay, roll call vote.
I have a
Oh, I'm
comment.
sorry, Commissioner
I
Colbeck.
just want to make a comment. I really appreciate the thoughtful work that went into this ordinance. It's quite detailed. Certainly around safety for both the riders and the public. It certainly thinks about mitigating potential risks, operation requirements, and overconsumption. So I really appreciate the approach as well, and thank you for the good work.
Now roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Andy, you want to take a 5-minute break? We got a couple presentations coming. Let's take a 5-minute break. Come back at 6:30. We'll call the meeting back to order. Item 43, applications for property tax exemption, improvements made to building. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Okay. You have my recommendation to appoint Commissioner Arlette Preston as Liaison Commissioner to the Community Development Committee. She is replacing Commissioner Strand.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Kolpak,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Recommendations for the appointments to following boards and commission: Liquor Control Board, Library Board, and Arts and Culture Commission. You have my recommendations. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Second, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a concern.
Commissioner Preston.
On the Liquor Control Board appointment, I believe the individual who was the incumbent was never asked whether she wanted to continue or not. I do think that it's important to have a process that we're using consistently. And at least I've been always, when I've been involved, you always ask the incumbent. If they're willing and interested, that carries some pretty heavy weight. This individual wasn't notified that she wasn't being reappointed. And, these people put in lots of time, lots of energy. And unfortunately, when you get dropped like that, that's tough. The second point being, Liquor Control Board is now 4 men. And we've been trying to increase diversity with our boards and commissions. And the ability to try to do that both with gender as well as people of color is a consideration here. And then thirdly, the individual that is being recommended comes from the liquor industry. And there is an individual, and in fact, the second person that's being requested to be reappointed is from the liquor industry. Both of them have retired, but they have that background. And I think to Commissioner Strand's comment earlier in regards to the concerns about where liquor licenses are awarded, downtown is heavy density liquor licenses, and this particular individual lives in the downtown area, and she brought that perspective from a neighborhood place. I also think, we now will have 2 liquor industry reps, and it's like the fox watching the hen house. I'm sorry. It's not a good way to run a liquor control board, it seems to me. So I am going to oppose that particular appointment, and just wanted to state that.
what I can do is separate the votes into A, liquor control, and B and C, so you can vote affirmatively for the arts and culture. Any other comments?
Mayor,
Peppercorn.
go ahead.
So, Mr. Chair, so a couple of the topics. First of all, the airport authority, we had incumbents and we made a change because we made a change. Just because they're incumbents, that doesn't mean we shouldn't have new members. And so our proposed new member, we want somebody with experience, and we also want somebody with passion for it. The whole thing about the downtown, I think our downtown is booming, and we are becoming an entertainment center, and I think that's a good thing, especially with Bell Bank, with 400 more people coming downtown. We need to have it safe, but we also want it to be vibrant. That's what we want to have going on. So I think he'll be an excellent addition. I think the whole bringing in sex is offensive to me. I think you want to have good candidates regardless of race, color, creed. I think that's very disappointing. But I think it's somebody who's interested. They've applied in the past. It would be an excellent candidate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Commissioner Preston for raising those questions. I had questions also, but not quite the same. You know, I don't know Kay Schwartz-Walter hardly at all, but only to acknowledge and say hi. So it's not like I have a vested interest in that individual. But I really remember and appreciated her routine communications to us about liquor industry issues downtown. And in the years leading to us making the decision to shift to a citizens liquor board, that was compelling. And her voice was important in my mind, in our considering and in fact doing that. I'd be disappointed to lose her voice at that board. I think the citizens' voices are really needed. And I don't know the mix of the rest of the commission after she would be gone, but that's my primary concern is she's downtown. We've had downtown challenges. She's an advocate for people's issues, and I've valued it. And I don't know this other candidate at all.
I would remind the commission that oftentimes when we appoint new appointments, the liaison commissioner with staff goes through and filters the applicants and then puts forth a recommendation. And you all do that in your different commissions that you are a part of. And so we can talk about it in our retreat is how we reappoint people or move new people into those positions. I think it's an issue which we need to be cognitive of what we'd like to do in our boards and how we'd like to add different people to it. But I remind you all on any recommendations, I've honored which ones you've asked me to do. So it is a difficult task. So maybe we can take it to the retreat and get deeper into that. So. Commissioner Kolpak.
Yeah, I was going to make that point about the work that's currently underway at the governance meetings, and that is specifically one of the areas that will be a future topic is how are we bringing, number one, process to boards and governing bodies, and what's the protocol around that. And then secondarily, there's some internal questions outstanding for DEI about how we're going to be doing that with boards and commissions and what's the strategy as part of their overarching strategy. And so I'm glad that future work is coming. It needs to be thoughtful and strategic, and it needs to map back to some measures of success we're trying to achieve. And so I certainly support that work.
Any other comments? So I will split it now. You have recommendations for Liquor Control Board. We'll do a roll call vote on that first, and then the other two.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Preston?
No.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Now we'll put up the Library Board and Arts and Culture Board. Roll call, please.
We need a first and a second.
It's consistent with the first and second we
Okay.
had before.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Construction update. Brenda Derrick and Tom Knockbooth. But is Tom here?
No, you just get Brenda.
Oh, Brenda, okay. Tom's on vacation. Brenda's back from vacation.
There you go. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We're now a good solid month into construction, so I thought now would be a good time to do a construction update at where we're at. So the first thing we start with are safety incidents, and we did have one safety incident on our 6th Avenue North project. We did have a resident that walked around a sidewalk closed sign and then tripped and fell. And that resulted in a broken nose and requested an ambulance. We have not had any update reports on their condition as of now. We have multiple places you can find additional information on our projects. We're online at fargostreets.com, along with Facebook and Twitter. So to date, we do have some completed projects. We've completed the 52nd Avenue South turn lane, our infrastructure and legacy addition. We had 19th Avenue North asphalt overlay. We've done a sidewalk repair and placement on the north side. We have our asphalt crack fill is completed along with our seal coat. And then we had the South University sanitary sewer repair. So what we're working on now is the 8th Street North removals have been started, and we're working on the underground. On 6th Avenue North, our phase 1 is complete. And on phase 3, 7th Street, we've got the underground completed with the paving to start soon. NP Avenue, you'll see in the slide, the pavement removals are complete. Our temporary safety fence and temporary lighting are in place, and the private utilities are relocating right now, with the underground starting this week. 8th Street South, we have the phase 1, the underground is complete, and the curb and gutter will be going in this week. And then in phase 2, the pavement has been removed, and the underground will start this week. We have our south side sidewalk project, and the contractor is continuing to replace existing sidewalk and then also install new sidewalk in areas that sidewalk has never been installed. So we're working hard on getting sidewalk on 1st Avenue South, paralleling Main Avenue, so that as that construction project starts in the future, we have a good walkway alongside it. We also have our asphalt mill and overlay, and we've got the contractor working in multiple sections. 32nd Avenue South, the contractor is paving the west half of the 25th Street intersection last week, and then phase 1 east of 25th Street is now open. And then we also have our citywide concrete spot repair project, and that's about 75% complete, and then our citywide pavement marking project. Our new development, we have 14.5 Street, just south of 1st Avenue North. The contractor is it's mostly complete with just finishing up on the sidewalk. A Rocking Horse 6 edition, all the paving is complete with some cleanup. And then Meadowview edition, the contractor is working on paving with a July 15th completion. And then the phase 2, we've got the Lomer work with an October 4th completion. Our Tillstone Drive, the contractor is working on paving and streetlights. Our asphalt wear course work is ongoing. And then we have Laverne's 2nd edition, which is on the north side, and we're working on the concrete paving and the storm sewer lift station. So the flood risk management projects, we have our Woodcrest levee. Phase 1 was completed last year, and we completed all the easement acquisitions over the winter, and now phase 2 is being worked on. We have the inspection trench completed, storm sewer installation is ongoing, and we're starting to bring in clay for the levee. We also have 2 lift stations, storm sewer lift stations on 42nd Street along Drain 27, and the contractor is currently working on the east storm lift station. We still have some upcoming projects. So we have the north side water main looping project, which will help increase the water main pressure on the north side and provide some redundancy there if we have any water main breaks with the new industrial construction happening up there. And then we have lift station 53 force main improvements through Osgood addition. We have 73rd Avenue South paving, and then 52nd Avenue South, the bridge reconstruction along the Cheyenne River. Private utilities are currently being relocated. For rehab and reconstruction, we still have the 25th Street underpass between Main Avenue and 1st Avenue North. We have 1st Avenue South work, between 4th Street and Broadway. And then we have additional mill and overlay projects. Because the original ones came in, we had a good bid price. We used some of that additional money for these projects, which was 17th Avenue between 42nd and 45th Street, and 42nd Street from Main to 13th Avenue. Here's just some construction pictures to go along with the information. Here on NP, we're rerouting the private utilities. 32nd Avenue, they're paving the west half of the 25th Street intersection. Here's another one on 32nd. And then this is an example of our concrete spot repair. On the left, you'll see what it was before, and then on the right, what we have after. Laverne's second edition, this is up on the north side, and those box culverts are gonna be the drain crossing just north of 19th Avenue North. And then this is our Woodcrest flood project. This is the 2022 project area, and then this is the new 2023 project area that we're working on this year. This is the 2 storm lift stations on 42nd Street at Drain 27. We currently have a full closure there to allow for the installation of the larger pipe. Again, we always encourage everyone to follow us online, Facebook and Twitter, for more information on our projects.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioner Pepcorn?
A couple, the costs for concrete and asphalt, are they lower than they were in the past?
Trying to think. I would say they're not lower than they continue to go up. It's just how much they go up. And so we haven't seen a huge spike from last year to this year.
Okay, and then one more, the 32nd Avenue, is that on pace, and do they have incentives to complete early, and will they get the incentives?
Yes, it's on pace. Some phases are going better than other, but there are incentives, and they will be getting some of their incentives.
It's looking better every day. It was just a mess a while back. Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, as I'm hearing you present this report, Brenda, I'm also reminded what an amazing, wonderful, terrific skill set you bring up to administration with this knowledge base in your portfolio. You know, it's just really something, you don't have to learn all this from scratch. You already are expert on it. That's amazing. My basic question, and you've heard this maybe before, just to know for my sake, when we do new infrastructure, is it routine now that we incorporate, for example, electric vehicle infrastructure preparation in advance, so we're not revisiting it soon?
So typically, when we do any projects, as we get into that pre-design, we are working with all the utility companies. How is your infrastructure? Do we need to do any upgrades while we have that road removed? Because that's the cheapest time and most economical time for those utility companies to come in and do their work. And so one of the things we have is we have annual meetings, especially with the electrical companies, and then also we work them into our pre-design. So once we get started, we bring them in and have those conversations.
So we won't miss opportunities for EV infrastructure? It'll for sure get included?
So I can't tell you how the utility, right? So I'm not managing Cass County Electric or Excel's facilities, but we are communicating to them when we have projects available and ready, and when roads will be removed, that they could do upgrades. So then it would be up to them to come to us and make sure that they can get in there.
And I'll conclude, but at some point, we may need to communicate our expectation of that so it's not hazy.
Correct. We can certainly help with that.
Okay, thank you.
But I think, Commissioner Strand, from your Sustainability Committee, that you also feel even in putting a new house, you need to bring up the question, do you want electric hookup for electric car? Because it does change the everything they put in that house. So I think John's maybe suggesting we look at just what the engineers might remind the electric companies about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other comments on that? Thank you very much. Glad you're back from vacation. I get some real work done. Liaison Commission reports. Commissioner Pepcorn.
No update.
Commissioner Preston.
Yeah, I just have a couple slides here. I'm continuing on, if you want to flip to the next, continuing on with a report from the national meetings for the Congress for New Urbanism and Strong Towns. Last time I talked a little bit about walkability. I'm going to talk a little bit about street designs, specifically complete streets this time. You want to flip? Now, complete streets and walkability really are quite heavily related. So going back and reviewing again a little bit about walkability. What does it mean? There is a company that does walk scores or software that actually assigns walk scores for neighborhoods. And those scores are based on the walking distance from any particular address to amenities such as stores, restaurants, parks, schools, even that kind of thing. Considers a number of nearby amenities and the ease of walking to them. So, for instance, the neighborhood that I used to live in, which was south of 32nd and a little bit west of 25th, I just looked up the walk score for that, and it was 34 or 36, right around there. Now living in downtown, the walk score is 87, something like that. So it just gives you a sense of that whole concept of walkability. So the benefits really in regards to both walkability and complete streets: better health status, fewer vehicle miles, and less demand for roads. So if you want to flip to the next slide. So complete streets really is trying to design a street that is conducive not only for vehicles, but also for bicyclists, pedestrians, transit, everything. And when I went to this, I didn't realize, but MetroCog has actually developed and put in place a complete street policy, which was developed in 2010. And you can read it there. It's just the ongoing comprehensive planning in the design, construction, and operations to improve safety, usability, and quality of life. And it's really to integrate and balance the needs of all street users. So didn't realize that was in place. I do believe it's being considered and incorporated into the transportation plan that hopefully will be coming forward fairly soon. Complete street policy really helps to ensure considering safety over speed and to support local land use and local economy. And I think that's the end of my slides. Yep.
Good. Today, Fargo hosted the North Dakota Police Chiefs, and they had a guest speaker who was kind of interesting to listen to, and it was one of the school shootings down in Florida. And just the two major items that came out of that, mental health issues. Young man had mental health issues. It triggered many different triggers that should have been reported and were not. And he went on to shoot 17 children. But that was one item that we learned out of that, is just the mental health is very much part of that. And there were three things that they should have caught, which they didn't. The second item was the dispatch center. They had an interesting dispatch center, mixed two counties, two cities that didn't interconnect. So when a shooter at the school came up, that didn't go out right away. That took a delay. So I just, Chief Dirksen, I want again to working on the dispatch center and how we have a system, two states, two counties, two cities, that does work well together. It was evident that by not reacting fast, that caused further problems. And then he described the shooter issue, and as others run away, our police officers are trained to run forward. Many of their police officers in the school were not armed, so they could not react to the shooter. And Chris, I think our guys are armed, is that correct? Yes. And so they are trained to do that. And the baffling thing is the young man walks into the school with a gun case. His Cabela's on it, and it's an obvious gun case, and nobody challenges him. He's got an AR-15 inside the case, so it was difficult. But it's a great conference that they're having, and what it does is it puts City of Fargo in front as working in teamwork with the different chiefs throughout the state, and it was refreshing to see the respect people have for our police force. So I was very pleased with it. Commissioner Kolpak.
Yes, good evening. I have 3 slides, 2 utility and 1 ending with the fire department. So the water department, the annual water quality report is now available. It's all citizens will be receiving a postcard. I know they're in the mail because I got mine yesterday. And it includes a link to the actual report that has data that's required to be published to all water customers by the EPA. And much of the language and it includes a lot of language and tables that are mandatory, and so that it saves printing costs and mailing costs to just do the postcard and point you to the link. And some of the features in this 2022 water quality report include results for mandated EPA water quality testing, aesthetic tap water quality averages for 2022, and a reminder that Fargo was selected as North Dakota's best tasting water. Solid Waste Department, Fargo's Solid Waste Department, along with Solid Waste Association of North America, hosted a hauler outreach event at the Fargo landfill on Thursday, June 15th, where haulers received safety brochures and water. The event was designed to educate drivers and operators on safety procedures and give on-site reminders for those who utilize the landfill. It was a very customer-centric event, beneficial for all parties, and was deemed very successful. And the last is an update on the fire department. First of all, we had the fire station number 8 groundbreaking on June 20th. It was well attended by a number of firefighters and leadership, along with media and the communication government affairs team. And next commission meeting, we will be seeing a video of that groundbreaking. So thanks to the team for putting that together. Last week, congratulations, Chief Dirksen, for hosting the Missouri Valley Fire Chiefs Conference for the first time since 1977, and congratulations to the conference committee who helped put that together. It featured several national speakers and presented to over 100 fire chiefs from our region. It was well attended, and neighboring fire chiefs enjoyed spending time in downtown Fargo. And then a reminder in advance of the 4th of July holiday, the Fargo Fire Department is reminding everyone and visitors that fireworks are illegal within the city of Fargo. Possession and use of fireworks within the limits of the city of Fargo is unlawful, and those found in violation will be found guilty of an infraction which carries a $100 fine and a requirement to appear before a judge in court. So the fire department, along with all of us, encourage you to attend the public fireworks display in Fargo this year. It will be at the FM Redhawks game on Friday, July 7th.
You must have got that picture from West Fargo, right?
Sure, that's from West Fargo. So I wish everyone a happy 4th of July and be safe out there.
Thanks, Commissioner Strand.
Thank you. That's what West Fargo does look like on the 4th. 3 things. The airport authority is working diligently and working and communicating with the city a lot on not only their $118 million terminal expansion, which is just game-changing for the city into the future, but the potential of whether or not we can also address parking at the same time in concert with the terminal expansion, so we can, because with 4 new gates, we're going to have an immense challenge. They will have an immense challenge with parking. So it's almost a weekly event meeting with the airport authority folks. And I'll just say this, our volunteers put an amazing amount of work in. It's a thankless job, and they don't get remunerated at all to be on these boards. So it's just a lot of work. And imagine being on a volunteer board where you're coming up with maybe $150 million of expansion. That's just an immense responsibility. So that's kind of fun to see unfold, and yet it's sausage making to see how we can all work together on this approach going forward. Number 2, it was my first time to the police picnic this year. And what an enjoyable experience, to see the services, the folks, the dynamics of the people and our law enforcement. I just wish I had been there before. And I'm gratified to see the culture that exists in our law enforcement and its relationship to the community. Secondly, we all saw that at our employee appreciation event. And we're past COVID, we're past some of the challenges. We all know we have our challenges with budgets and COLAs and increases, demands on, that go with a growing city. But boy, what a wealth we have in our people that deliver one employee 50 years. I can't even fathom that. And others for 40 years, 30 years, 25 years, 15 years, 10 years, we are our people that are tirelessly delivering on behalf of the city. And they deserve our thanks every day, not just once a year. Lastly, happy one-year anniversary on Wednesday to Commissioner Kolpak at the commission level. And on Wednesday, we're having a retreat, and I'm expecting, I hope somebody will bring birthday cake for our mayor. That's my report.
Very good. Any other motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.